Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Review. Today we bring you one of our most explosive episodes to date. We'll be discussing brand new figures, brand new reveals, brand new mistakes by Hasbro, and a lot more. Watch until the end, you'll want to hear all of the updates and insight from the G.I. Joe Classified team, as well as our reaction to Hasbro once again playing games with their customers. Let's go! First up, let's talk about the brand new G.I. Joe pre-orders. On Tuesday, March 4th, Hasbro quietly launched several brand new pre-orders including the Mass Device Breaker, Snake Eyes and Polar Bear, Retro Flint, Retro Cover Girl, and Retro Televiper. To date, we've already covered these figures extensively. You know the details, you've seen what the figures will look like, and now, pre-orders are live. But there's a catch. Hasbro made no effort to announce these pre-orders in advance. That's right, no heads up, no hype, just a release that slipped under the radar. This created panic, resulting in Breaker being sold out within a few hours. Many collectors had no idea that Hasbro was opening pre-orders on Tuesday, because Hasbro didn't say a word. So a lot of people missed out. Great job, Hasbro. Another chaotic rollout that could have easily been avoided with some basic communication with your audience. Way to keep your customers informed. And to everyone out there watching, take note that Hasbro stayed completely silent about this set of pre-orders until after the fact. This is not the first, second, or even third time they've done this. They've acknowledged it in the past, said they wouldn't do it again, and here we are again. You can expect the usual chorus of Hasbro defenders to stay silent too, in their quest to maintain favor with the company. But all of this directly impacts you, the paying customer. And here on Viper Island, we stand up for collectors like you. We're not loyal Hasbro bootlickers like some others who won't dare speak about Hasbro's mistakes or wrongdoing. For the last 4 years, we've consistently talked about both the good and the bad. We don't carry water for billion-dollar companies like Hasbro who see everything as a one-way street in their own favor. Let's be clear. This lack of transparency and foresight that we're seeing with the sloppy rollout of these new figures is a problem. One that Hasbro's G.I. Joe team seems to be dealing with more than any other branch in the billion-dollar company. What we're left with are figures that we can all agree, on the surface, look good. Flint, Cover Girl, Televiper, Snake Eyes, and Breaker all look really good. But this new rollout also comes with a catch. The artwork on the retro packaging, questionable at best. In fact, it looks suspiciously like AI-generated art, which may explain why it's often all the wrong ways. Especially Flint. What is even going on here? And this also brings us to the real issue. Yet another botched rollout from a team that has a consistent track record of missteps and at times even dishonesty. Anyone remember the lies they told about the soft gummy plastic in 2023 that they finally had to come clean about when it took them over a year and a half to address it? They proved at that time that they were willing to lie and feed fans whatever excuses bought them time. That is, until they realized they didn't have a good handle on the problem, and it wouldn't be going away as fast as they had hoped. We saw Hasbro for who they were then, just like we see them for who they are today. The truth is, this is not a company-wide issue. It's a glaring problem unique to the G.I. Joe team. While Hasbro's other major toy lines seem to be cruising along without major delays, it's G.I. Joe fans who are left to pick up the pieces and spread the word to other fans about the pre-orders. And that's not all. According to Hasbro, fans can expect significant product delays for the G.I. Joe brand this year. But don't worry, this problem doesn't seem to extend to most other lines. It's largely only a G.I. Joe brand issue. This begs the question, what exactly is the G.I. Joe team prioritizing? They're not advertising pre-order drops, they're not answering questions from the community, and too often, they're saying one thing and doing another. And at times, outright lying about their policies and bending the rules when it comes to showing favor to their favorite loyal army of bootlickers. At this rate, it seems more like they're playing games with collectors than actually addressing their needs. And let's be clear, this is not just our perspective. G.I. Joe fans are now echoing the same frustrations. Since the end of October's Hasbro 1027 event, the G.I. Joe team has been virtually silent. Over 4 months later, they've already canceled their February livestream because apparently 4 months wasn't enough time for them to prepare. Meanwhile, the Marvel Legends team has been consistently engaging with their audience every month. What's the G.I. Joe team been doing? Reposting old figure diagrams. What? It's as if they're unaware of, or straight up ignoring the discontent brewing within their own fanbase. By the time the March 18th livestream happens, if it happens, it will have been nearly half a year since G.I. Joe fans heard anything substantial from this team. We reached out to G.I. Joe fans for their input, and here's how you told us you feel. 25% are excited, 35% are confused about what Hasbro is doing, and 41% are frustrated and feel they deserve better communication. So when we take a step back, that's 3 out of 4 G.I. Joe fans who are not thrilled with how things are being handled. It's time to demand more respect, more communication, and more actual transparency from Hasbro. The G.I. Joe team has become famous for claiming to be transparent, while not actually knowing how that works. Let's hear your thoughts on this situation. Is Hasbro listening? Will they step up and finally engage their audience properly? Or will they continue to leave fans in the dark? Sound off in the comments below and let us know how you feel about this. If you're enjoying this, hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed. Next, our feature story. Hasbro breaks its word to G.I. Joe collectors again. Another day, another broken promise from Hasbro's G.I. Joe team. When things are good, we talk about the good. When things are bad, we talk about the bad. And after swearing up and down that they would never again drop surprise pre-orders without prior notice, Hasbro just went ahead today and did exactly that. Because why would they bother respecting their customers? Rumors started swirling on Monday afternoon about possible pre-orders on Tuesday. Did Hasbro confirm or communicate anything? Of course not, because that would require effort, and apparently their customers aren't worth the bare minimum. Instead, at 4 a.m. on Tuesday morning, the Mass Device Breaker figure went live for pre-orders completely unannounced. No warning, no courtesy, no respect. Just another slap in the face to the same collectors who made this line successful in the first place. The same collectors that Hasbro promised they would never do this to again. This is not an accident. This is not an oversight. This is a pattern. A little over a year ago, when Hasbro pulled the same stunt with the Tiger Paw and Wreckage set, they got called out for dropping surprise pre-orders without any notice. And Emily from the Hasbro team even apologized, saying, and we quote, "We will never do that again." That turned out to be just another empty promise from a company that has built a reputation on saying one thing and doing another. Accountability matters, and Hasbro's contempt for its customers is nothing new. How is it that Hasbro, a multi-billion-dollar company, can't handle basic communication? Why is it up to fans and collectors to spread the word about new pre-orders instead of the company whose job it is to market and sell these figures? They have an entire team dedicated to this, yet time and time again, they rely on their customers to do their job for them. This is just one example of Hasbro's long-standing practice of exploiting the goodwill of its fan base. Remember a few years ago when Hasbro used to send out promotional packages to their hand-picked favorites, expecting them to create free content in exchange for a few cheap plastic action figures? That was nothing short of corporate manipulation, getting people to produce free commercials instead of paying them for their work. That's called free labor. It was predatory then, it's predatory now. And we called it out at the time. And guess what happened? Those promotional packages mysteriously stopped immediately after we exposed Hasbro's game. It's one thing to send out promotional packages as a thank you to recognize people for what they've done, not as payment for commercials that would otherwise cost Hasbro a lot more money to produce. A true professional gets paid with money, not toys. Meanwhile, the so-called influencers who received those packages never once criticized Hasbro, and why would they? Amazingly, they were bought off with a few boxes of plastic instead of being paid actual money for their labor. Seriously, that's all it took to guarantee their silence and unwavering defense of a multi-billion-dollar corporation that couldn't care less about them or their audience. As the saying goes, there's a sucker born every minute. And while we're having this conversation, let's talk about money. Hasbro is worth over $9 billion as of today, a nearly 30% increase from the previous year, 28.72% more to be exact. This is the same $9 billion company that lays off employees while raking in record profits, proving time and time again that their only priority is to their shareholders and themselves, never their customers, never their employees, and certainly never the fans who keep buying their overpriced products. Let it be known, Hasbro could sell G.I. Joe Classified figures for less and do just fine. They could include figure stands in every box, instead of making figures that can't stand upright. They could actually offer meaningful stretch goals in their HasLab campaigns, instead of cheap patches that nobody wants. But they won't, because Hasbro's strategy has always been to see just how much they can squeeze out of collectors before the backlash becomes too loud to ignore. And they're no fools. They recognize that the cost of living has dramatically increased, especially in America. As costs continue to go up, and the amount that people are paid continues to stay around the same or even go down, Hasbro's customers will eventually begin to no longer afford their products, so Hasbro's trying to get as much as they can right now before the world eventually goes to hell. And here's a very reliable prediction for you. Hasbro will inevitably raise prices again under the excuse of the upcoming Trump tariffs. Meanwhile, other massive corporations like Apple, Chipotle, and many others have already announced that they will absorb these costs themselves. That's what responsible companies do. Hasbro, on the other hand, will pass those costs on to you and act like they had no choice, just like they've done with supply chain issues, increased production costs, and every other excuse they've thrown around to justify gouging collectors. Some may not want to hear this, but Hasbro does not care about you. Remember that. We can love the G.I. Joe brand, we can celebrate the incredible figures, the nostalgia, and the passion that fans like us have all carried for over 40 years. But at the same time, we should all be smart enough to separate the brand from the soulless corporation that currently owns it, because that corporation sees you as nothing more than a walking ATM. They don't respect their customers, they don't honor their promises, they don't value communication, and unless collectors start demanding better, Hasbro will continue to treat its audience like fools. So what happens next? Will there be more unannounced pre-orders in the future? Or will we get yet another hollow apology that means absolutely nothing from the same people at Hasbro who have openly mocked and repeatedly shown disdain for G.I. Joe collectors and fans? This is a very polarizing and divisive topic. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you disagree with our take? Or are we speaking the truth that you feel? Whatever your thoughts, sound off in the comments below. And there you have it. You've made it to the end of this episode, and we really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. And we would love it even more if you take just 1 second of your time. Make sure that down below you are subscribed to the channel. We ask that you do, because that guarantees that we definitely get to see you back here again next time. Thanks for tuning into Viper Island, your one-stop shop for all things G.I. Joe. When there's relevant news, we'll be here to discuss all of it, together with you. Thanks for watching, thanks for supporting, have a great day, and yo Joe!